hopefully you can hear me. There's some background agricultural noise going on, and we're here at IRC just outside in the, the Redwood Grove. There's some, feels pretty peaceful here. I'm hearing the background noise, so hopefully we'll just pretend it's all just quiet here and still, which it does feel like that to me. Yeah, so, Willow's on the camera, so yeah, I was hoping to just kind of walk through the grounds a little bit, maybe show the meditation hall, and yeah, I think as we pass by, Willow, if you want to point out there's a bird nest that looks like it was on the ground right there.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure if a branch fell or what happened.
Yeah, we just saw this morning when we came out.
So yeah, as you can see, it's August, end of summer, and in Santa Cruz that usually means kind of summer at its peak. So it's really sunny day today. We're through the fog and kind of that like gloomy morning time. Now it's just zing, you wake up and the sun's up with you. So things are really green. We have, just looking around here, we got all the grasses, the red kangaroo paw, just a lot of plants. Really growing. Yeah, so I was hoping we'd walk through here. We've started opening to volunteers coming, so we just have small groups of volunteers come, and sometimes they'll just hang out outside. This is the kitchen patio area, so kind of keep socially distant everything here. And yeah, so things are changing, and yeah, there's just a small group of residents kind of keeping this place going in terms of the online retreats and all the different paths that happen here. So yeah, I was hoping to go inside. So we're kind of entering the community area. This is the main meeting place at the center. When a retreat starts, this is usually the first place we all gather kind of in a circle, and have teachers here, and all just kind of settle in and get to know each other a little bit. And then it's almost like this wish feeling of the retreat just starting, the inevitability of it. Just a lot of sweet memories for me, kind of sitting and closing in the opening circle. And just, meeting everybody, seeing everybody, kind of that group energy coming together. So, I'm going to ring one of these bells just because it's been so long. We're usually here in person on the retreat. We'll have bell ringers, and all these bells here. I'll just. Yeah, so just hearing that kind of reminds me of the retreat schedule. As the retreat starts, there will be bells to kind of, signify that, maybe a sitting period ended and we have the walking period starting, and just, feels like every hour or two there's bells, and it just kind of, don't need to look at the clock or, look at your watch or anything. You can just kind of settle into the retreat and just be present, hear the sounds, and kind of get on the flow. So since the center where we haven't had any in-person retreats for feels like half a year. I just even that sound, I'm just remembering what that was like. So maybe we can kind of just take in this room a little bit and, head upstairs. And I guess I'm just looking forward to seeing the meditation hall. Well, is this something you want to talk about?
I haven't been too involved in this, but this is Kuan Yin, a representation of compassion, and people have added some names here of just people they care about, people who might need some love at this moment, and a way of keeping our hearts open and connected to the world.
Can we go upstairs?
Oh, it sounds like today there's another retreat going on, so there's some audio coming through from that.
Yeah, so we actually have an online retreat happening, and the meditation hall is, that's part of that retreat. So let's actually just take a tour of the, maybe the kitchen, dining area. And so that's been happening for a while, where we'll have maybe one retreat or two retreats, and there might be some overlap. So kind of different things happening. So this is another area where, I just feel like this, the dining bell, the lunch bell, just even being here, just remembering, I haven't heard this bell in so long. I just kind of want to, just remember. So, usually at the end of this, we have a whole line of people right down this hall, and, the cooks, we have service leader cooks, they would all bow, and everybody would bow, and then food would be offered, and everybody would take in the food and sit here, practicing and eating. And just thinking about it, just, brings a smile to me, just because it's again just been so long, and also it's just so sweet, all the different, kind of ceremonies or traditions, or all the elements of the retreat, where it's almost like there is a kind of a break where it's like, okay, now we stop practicing. It's just all part of it, and just again the kind of the group, the feel that we're all together practicing, and standing in line, the service leaders providing food, teachers making breakfast, for example. It's all just kind of coming to me right now. So I think I'll hand it over to Andrea now, and I'll be towards the end of this retreat. I'll just say a few words, a few announcements. So I'll hand it over to you, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you, Stas. It's lovely to be able to see the beautiful grounds of IRC. I live quite close to IRC, about 40 minutes, but I haven't been there myself for maybe 6-7 months. So seeing those lovely redwoods is beautiful. So thank you, Stas. And we have one more minute before we want to start, but I want to welcome people to our half-day retreat. And, this is one of the many very creative ways that IMC and IRC has adopted to function in this new world that we have. And we can take a moment to just be appreciative that, although with its limits, that technology does offer us a way to continue practicing and supporting each other. We need the support. And it's such a beautiful thing to know that wherever you are in the world, that we are experiencing the same, pretty much with some variations, but this is something that really has brought the world to feel our interconnection. So lovely to see. I recognize somebody, the dear Catalina from Colombia, and I see somebody from Texas and from Medford and Mountain View. So welcome wherever you are. And so it's already 10 o'clock, so let us begin with our guided meditation. We're going to do a half-hour meditation. But before we start, I just want to introduce the topic for our half-day retreat. And the topic is space, creating space. So you realize that this is a very broad topic and that many of you can come into this topic from very different directions. So let's just hold it in whatever way it's natural for us to relate to this topic of space. And let's begin by investigating space in our meditation. So to begin with, I'm going to ask you to gently close your eyes. Notice what shifted the moment you closed your eyes. What is happening in this rich inner world? In this practice, we are trained to be aware constantly in two dimensions: the exterior dimension, the world around us, and the interior dimension, our minds, hearts. So we're going to bring the awareness now to investigate this interior world. So we begin with a very simple question. How is this body now? You might notice sensations. You might feel your posture. And I invite you to feel the posture in relation to space. So much can be learned and benefited from a mindful posture. The mindful posture conditions the mind. And a mindful awareness of the mind can support the body. So let's try to find this very delicate balance in our posture between ease, relaxation, and alertness and uprightness. The body is quite happy if we find this balance. These two aspects of ease, relaxation, and alertness and uprightness can be found if we think of the skeleton as that which keeps us upright. That gives us this sense of structure, alertness. And if it helps you, I invite you to think of all the fleshy parts as being the ones that we just want to let go, easefully giving into the force of gravity. Now visualize the skeleton keeping you upright, muscle, tendon, sinews, relaxing into the force of gravity. Keeping the mind where the body is. Remembering the body gives us the here, the mind gives us the now. As we continue feeling this beautiful balance between ease and alertness, notice how the body is being breathed. Let it happen naturally on its own. We don't need to manipulate the breath. We're just observers, witnesses of the breath. Perhaps some of you can feel the abdomen as we breathe. You can feel the movement of the breath in the abdomen. And perhaps we can set the intention to create space in the abdomen. It becomes an invitation to soften the abdomen. And as we manage to soften the abdomen, there's a felt sense of stability, as if our base becomes broader. So let's just stay for a few minutes in silence, feeling the space in the abdomen and the movement of the breath, this rhythmic expansion and contraction of the abdomen. Keeping it simple. You might notice that at times the body wishes to take a deep breath. But as you exhale, it becomes like a sigh, releasing whatever is unnecessary to hold on to, tensions, worries, busyness, releasing it into the space around us. And now, as a way to continue exploring space, open up your awareness from the abdomen to the space around you. And let's bring our awareness to sounds. Any sound. It can be within the space you are or outside. Visualize sound waves traveling through space. We receive these sound waves. No need to strain or to lean forward. we remain seated around the center or axis of our posture and receive sounds. Can you notice the difference when mind gets arrested by thoughts? What happens to the inner space? You can smile at the thoughts, we can thank them, but we don't have to entertain them now. Go back, resting the awareness in space, receiving sounds. We will now switch the awareness back to the abdomen. And we're going to try to keep that sense of spaciousness that perhaps was palpable as we were aware of sounds. Does the quality of sati or awareness change when it rests in the body as opposed to space? Remaining with the awareness in the abdomen, or if you wish to place it in another part in the body that is most comfortable for you, please do so. But be it the abdomen or another part in the body, let's be very curious. What is the quality of sati as it rests in this body? How would I describe it? This is embodied sati, embodied awareness. If you wish, you can explore going between awareness resting in the body and awareness resting in space. Trying to discover for yourself what is the felt difference between these two states. So the rest of the meditation, we will be in silence. And you're welcome to just rest, sati or awareness in the body, or in space, or both, shifting from one to the other. So we're going to have the opportunity now to continue our exploration of space. And we're going to do so by doing some walking meditation. So this is meditation in movement through space. We can say that this is the proprioceptive awareness, that is, body in relation to movement and space. And so for those who are new to walking meditation, please choose a place where you can take approximately 10 steps in one direction. Be aware how you hold your arms and hands. There's no set place, but we try to hold both the same way. For example, we can clasp them in the back. And then as you begin to walk, place your awareness on your legs and feet, feeling, lifting the leg, feeling the placing of the foot on the ground, feeling the shifting of the weight. So the awareness comes into the body in movement. As you get to the end of the 10 steps, you can stop, wait, be aware that you're going to turn around and then come back and do the same. So enjoy your exploration of movement in space, and we will ring a bell 3 minutes before it's time to come back. So welcome back. We begin now our second meditation. And with this, we continue the exploration of creating space, remembering that we work with feeling the exterior space, which is something you were practicing with as you moved through space with walking meditation. And now we explore again the interior space. We will explore it and cultivate it. And we will do so through choiceless attention, sometimes also called open awareness. So I invite you to take a comfortable posture, upright and alert. And as you close your eyes this time, notice how you're doing now, which will be very different, most likely, from the first time we closed our eyes. So we begin by asking ourselves, how is the body? And then we can ask, how is the mind? So as we practice choiceless attention, we let go of any preference of a meditation object, This requires stability. So as not to get lost in the mind, in the thinking mind. So as we open our awareness, without focusing on any particular meditation object, we can experience this sense of spaciousness in the mind. We are giving space to whatever wants to present itself at this moment. We do so openly, lovingly, free of fixed ideas. And as a way of helping the mind to stay in the here and now, we will drop the question repeatedly, what is happening now? And the way we want to respond is very succinctly, with mental noting, with just one word we will describe. For example, my attention lands on sensations in the body. So the mental note will be sensing or pressure. In-breath. Hearing. Tension. Thinking. Emotion. We might notice that many things happen in a given moment, and that the mental noting is just attention that lands on a specific area of the experience and names it. That's enough. We don't have to pressure ourselves trying to name everything. One small aspect is enough. That keeps us in the here and now. So keeping in mind to drop the question, what is happening now? And in a soft and relaxed way, applying the mental noting. So let's try it for a while in silence. When the noting stops, most likely the mind has gone off thinking. So gently bring it back, and we start again. What's happening now? Remembering to keep the naming, the mental noting very simple. So we don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what is the best way to name something. Just quickly, the most overall term that captures the activity. That's enough. And you want to also be aware not to pounce on the noting, just kindly naming. What is happening now? Noticing if it's possible to recognize when a thought peeks from around the corner, when it's about to arise. That's an easy way to let go of it, if we can notice it that quickly. I see you, thinking mind. Perhaps you can notice the contractions in the body that happen as we think. It's as if the inner space contracts. disappears. The simplicity of just naming, hearing, and just like we can perceive the beginning of a thought that peeks around the corner, so we can perceive the beginning of a tension in the body. It's almost like a wave coming in the ocean. And if we notice, we realize we have a choice. We can let go. And the body says, thank you. And as we rest with this choiceless attention, we become space. Interior space and exterior space become one. What is happening now? It is very fruitful to notice the physicality of thinking, noticing the impact of thoughts on the body. Continuity of sati. We can remind ourselves to take up the mental noting again if it has ceased. And for the last 5 minutes of the meditation, let's set the intention to be as present as possible. Receiving and allowing whatever arises in the field of awareness. And recognizing that as we do so, we are creating interior space. So wonderful to be able to give a Dharma talk on space after having been able to create space for a couple of hours. So I want you to begin by imagining yourself in a museum, and you're standing in front of a pretty large sculpture. In order to perceive the sculpture in its totality, we need to take several steps back. If we are too close, we have no perspective. We only see a small part of it. We also need to walk around it to be able to see it fully from different perspectives. So to gain perspective and appreciate the sculpture, we need to create space. And just so with our mind, when we are caught by a problem, we are too close to that incident and there's no space. So how is this lack of space expressed? First, I need to say that we need to recognize that we're caught by something and therefore lack the perspective. And how it gets expressed, most obvious for a lot of us, is the way it expresses in the body. It expresses with all kinds of tension in the body. The mind is agitated and it insists in creating stories about X, whatever situation. We tend to be restless and wanting to move around a lot and talking a lot and fast. In that kind of state, there is a compulsion to talk about what is causing us discomfort. I'm sure you can think of a situation where you recognize that somebody was immersed in some kind of drama. That person talked to you incessantly about the problem. You notice that their speaking was reactive, full of criticisms, and sometimes even with insults. So this kind of speaking arises from the desire to free ourselves from the discomfort, and yet it achieves exactly the opposite. Because this way of speaking entraps us even more in the dynamics of suffering. So this can be expressed in the speaking or in the activity of the mind. And our practice trains us to recognize when we or somebody else is in that reactive space. So what are the inner conditions in the mind when we are trapped in this reactive mode? So the most obvious, the mind lacks perspective. There's no space. We are trapped. We are totally identified with the story. There is a lot of emotion connected with this. And so when this happens and we notice this, is it possible that we can just very matter of fact, without judging, without reactivity, just say, I lack perspective at the moment? Is it possible to do that? So how do we create space? We know how to do that because this is what we've been doing this morning. In my own experience, since I feel it primarily in the body, When I manage to take my first deep breath, I know I have begun to create some interior space. This transition to some relaxation in the body has immediate repercussions in the thinking mind. So the thinking mind's fist begins to open and soften. We begin to have fewer thoughts, and probably the thoughts are moving at a slower pace. So now we have space in between these thoughts. And this space opens new possibilities. Now, cultivating this internal space or perspective takes time, because it can only arise from a stable body and mind. No one can tell us how this internal space feels like. Each one of us has to discover it for themselves. And notice how, when we look at something with perspective, there is a sense of spaciousness in the body and mind. We breathe comfortably. We have a sense of balance. There's equanimity. When we look at something with perspective, there's more creativity, and we can envision original possibilities of how to relate to this situation that is causing us some challenge. So I want to share with you a very specific technique that Joseph Goldstein talks about. And it has 3 aspects. The first one is what happens is, actually, let me back up. The first one is when something happens, let's say that is upsetting, that is upsetting to us. Somebody tells us something. Okay, so something has happened. There was a stimulus. This we're going to call A, the stimulus. Now, there is an immediate response in me. An emotion can arise. That we're going to call B, that's my response. So there's the stimulus, something happened, let's say somebody told me something, and then an emotion arose, that's B. When this interaction, like in this example, is upsetting, what happens is that most of us, if we haven't had any training for our minds, we will get stuck in this dynamic, recreating the event in our minds over and over again and fabricating responses. In other words, we are repeating a cycle between A and B. So visualize this circling around A and B incessantly. Now, the Dharma tells us that there is something beyond this dynamic of getting caught in the vicious circle. And that is the investigation of how am I relating to what occurred? And this is point C. Now, this simple question, this simple questioning opens up something new and very important. We are creating space. So asking myself this question is like taking a step back from that sculpture. Initially, it's as if my nose is touching the sculpture. I cannot see it. But if I take a step back, I can create space and I have perspectives. And what I think is most important and promising is that as we ask ourselves this question, point A, or whatever happened outside, the origin or the stimulus, is no longer central. I now don't need to invest energy in recounting A. I don't need to tell or retell this story to a teacher, to a psychologist, or to myself. Now the attention and energy goes inward to investigate something that I have influence over. And this is where the power is. Because here is the real possibility for change. This is where we can create the space. Now, in the process of investigating this question of how we are relating to X, we need to give ourselves a soft, open attention, one that does not judge, even when challenging emotions and sensations arise, because they will arise and they will reveal our pettiness, our insecurities, our fears. But we still remain open, receptive. Now, naming emotions with precision is a central aspect of this investigation. And I'll share with you this example that Joseph Goldstein gives, where he recounts he was had a situation that had caused him a lot of suffering. He couldn't free himself from it. So he started to do exactly this, creating the space, asking the question, how am I relating to this? As he noticed the emotions that were arising for him, the one that he was naming very often was sadness. But he was noticing that he wasn't really being able to create space. Nothing was moving. So he persevered with patience. He continued giving it time. And as he continued investigating with acceptance, he discovered that no, that was not precise. It wasn't sadness, what he was actually experiencing or relating to this experience. It was unhappiness. So notice this is a tiny difference. But the unhappiness is just the lack of happiness, and it's not the same thing as sadness. So we might think that this is a negligible difference. However, when Joseph named unhappiness, it was as if he had found the lost key that opened the door to a new space. So that precise term of unhappiness caused the tight fist of the mind-heart to soften. And this brings us to realize the importance of being precise when we are naming our experience. Because if we remind ourselves, sati, mindfulness, is about being able to perceive the reality as it is, not what we want it to be. Honestly, perceiving, opening up without judging, without rejecting, without hiding. So, in conclusion, when we find ourselves, we cannot stop thinking or talking about something. It is as if we are imprisoned in a narrow cell. There is no space. Recognizing we are imprisoned, i.e., trapped in the cycle between A and B, is the first step. Is the first step to creating space. The next step is posing the question, how we relate to X, which is C. We mature in our practice every time we clearly recognize the difference in the mind between A, the stimulus, B, the response, and C, the relation to the stimulus. So let's close our eyes. Letting the words sink in. Take a moment now to think of a present situation in your life where it could benefit from creating some space around it. And you can ask yourself, do I have clarity about how to try out this 3-aspect teaching or 3 steps teaching of differentiating between the stimulus, my response, and how I relate to it. And for this, it is very important to know that we have clarity of what C entails. Are we clear of how C could become unskillful? Do we know what are the pitfalls of C? Thank you. So this is our time now to converse. I would be so happy if I could see your faces. This is the time where I noticed that this medium lacks a little bit, but at least I would love to hear from you through the texting. You can text me comments or questions. A possibility, if you're interested, is noticing that we can apply this ABC teaching to the practice of retreat, and very specifically to the practice discussion with a teacher. So if anybody is interested in exploring that together, please just type so, and we will take some time to talk about that. So I don't see any questions yet, but since we are in IRC, so to speak, even virtually, and retreats are such a central part of our practice, let me take some time to talk a little bit about this 3-step teaching and the retreat practice discussions. So one way for a teacher of recognizing, let me put it another way. It is very typical for new yogis to retreat to come to a practice discussion and use the valuable 15-minute time they have with the teacher to carry on at length about something that happened, let's say in the retreat, somebody took their space, and how mad they got, and how could a yogi have done that, and they go on and on and on and on like that. Often yogis will use up the whole time of the interview, and no space is created. That is, they just stay stuck in the A and B, cycling around A and B. So a teacher has to actually interrupt the yogi in order to be able to together begin to create some space. Because one of the most beautiful things that happen in a practice discussion in retreat is that the yogi brings something to the teacher that the teacher that can then work with, and together they create some space. So the yogi now goes back to his or her practice and knows how to continue, how to apply this teaching, because there's a little bit more space. So now I hope this was complete enough. And there is one comment by Phil. Okay, so I would like to hear more about that. I guess that's about the retreat. One of the things that really distract me during retreats is rehearsing practice discussions in my mind. So true, so true. It happens to all of us. And it's a fine balance that we need to find, because we know that we have only a certain amount of time with a teacher. And if we don't do a little bit of preparing, maybe we are not able to use the time as well. But what I would recommend is take not that much time, but take maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes maximum from one of the meditations, let's say from the walking meditations, where you can actually stop walking and go to your room and sit down and just jot some very briefly ideas that you want to bring up. And then you can go back to your meditation, and every time that the thought begins to come up, you just will tell yourself, just like we did this time, thinking. And you can begin to try to create that space. So how am I relating to this? What emotion is there? Maybe there is fear. Maybe there is this desire to show ourselves as best as possible, in the best possible light to the teacher. And then somebody is asking, which I'm very glad that you're asking this, is can you say more about the pitfalls of step 3 or C, our relationship to the stimulus and how we work with this in daily life? So when we get we need to understand that in order to get to a fruitful investigation of how am I relating to X that is causing me suffering, there needs to be already a little bit of stability in the body and the mind, right? Otherwise, we know it's a very slippery terrain and we will be gone in reactivity. So give yourself some very conscious time of creating some stability, which might imply going out, running, swimming, walking, being in space, taking in space, breathing, very, very important. So one of the pitfalls is jumping in to pose the question before there is some stability. Another pitfall about going into C is being impatient. So yes, we ask the question, how am I relating to this? But there is an impatience, like I want to find out the answer now, and that's going to backfire on us. Because we know that this takes time. It has its own time of fruition. Another pitfall is aversion to the present discomfort. We know that when we're suffering about something, and we have, for example, right now during these times, many challenges. So are we aware if we have aversion to the challenges that we are experiencing? That's a very important point. Another pitfall would be being attached to a specific result. So we have a very specific idea of how it looks to get to the end of this investigation, and we get attached to it. That will definitely cause us problems. And one last pitfall that I can think of right now would be falling into the last hindrance of doubt, that the investigation becomes just this doubting, this questioning that is ineffectual, that it keeps us stuck in the deliberation. And this, of course, arises out of a lack of confidence. This waffling back and forth. So I hope that that this clarifies how getting to this third phase of the questioning, how am I relating? And let me see, I see another question. This was just a thank you. Okay. So if there is no more question right now, I will just invite you right now to close your eyes for a few seconds. And as we are concluding our half day together, let us set the intention that whatever we have shared here together, that it will benefit us and every person that we come in contact with. So thank you very much for your attention. I will say goodbye to you, and I understand that you have now the opportunity to have some community time and have some Zoom breakout groups. So enjoy that and have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you very much. And thank you for your practice.
Hey, everybody. It's just been really sweet to hear Andrea's words, and just thankful to have Andrea's teachings and, to be here with everybody. So I just have a few announcements. So next week on Wednesday, we'll have a similar, half-day retreat, and it will be with Diana Clark. So that information will be posted. And like Andrea was saying, we'll have a community time next. So that link, it's a Zoom link, and the password's community, all lowercase. So just want to thank everybody. And Heather will be facilitating the community time.